The next thing I need to worry about is, what about cars going through each other? I should probably make sure that if you're going to move to the right, don't go that way if there's a collision. So, in the road, when I take a step, I need to deal with that. So I can't just add the X position here. So I've got to do an if statement around this stuff here to make sure that I'm not colliding with some other vehicle. Running down vehicles is not kosher. So I need to check to see if by setting my X position to be that new spot, if I'm going to run into somebody. So I can check for collision. And it's going to be v.getX plus v.getWidth. That's where it's going to be the new X position I'm going to check, or I'm sorry, not width, speed. So if I add my speed onto my car, am I going to hit somebody? Use my Y position. Width is the width of my vehicle. Technically, I suppose I don't need to pass these V things along because I'm actually using the vehicle, but oh well. Oops, I don't need to pass vehicle V, just V. So if that's false, which means that I'm not hitting somebody, then hey, go ahead and set myself to be there. There's a similar thing I need to worry about with this wrapping, where if I have a collision by moving to 0, that's a bad thing. So what I'm going to do is check to make sure that if by wrapping back to 0 and I don't have a collision, only then am I allowed to wrap back around. Otherwise, I'm just not going to do anything. There we go. Well, that's interesting. Uh-oh, that's bad. So let's see, if I check to see if there's a collision at my X position plus my speed, only then am I allowed to set my X position and speed. So if I'm in the same lane and I'm not checking myself, my X is less than his X plus his width. Oh. Interesting thing here. I'm using vehicle's X position in all of these things rather than the X position I'm passing in. That's not quite what I'd like. What I actually need to do inside of this is I need to not use getX. And the reason why is that I'm actually adding speed onto this X variable. So I actually need to use the actual honest to goodness X I'm passing in for both of these things. Width is probably superfluous now that I think about it, but for now I'm going to leave that. And that's the behavior I want. A little chunky, but there you go. Since I noticed that, I'm actually going to pull width out of here. Width is actually never used. I use vehicles, get width. So that actually makes my coding a little shorter. I still want the Y position, and the reason why is that when I want to try and switch lanes, I need to consider that. Speaking of which, we're at the point now where we need to check to see if we can switch lanes. So one of the parts of the simulation is I need to check to see if I can switch lanes. So if a car will collide ahead of it, it should check to see if it can switch lanes to the immediate left or right, and only then does it not move. So what I need to do is I need to check to see if there's any way I can move up a lane first. So my plan is that cars move left first and then right. It probably could be the other way in actual traffic, that they're supposed to go to the right if they're able to, but anyway. you can experiment with other traffic patterns. So in a step, if I'm about to collide with somebody, which is collision, that will be an else statement off of this one. Car ahead. Then I need to check to see if there's anybody to my left. Now, first I should make sure that I'm not in the leftmost lane, because, you know, going off-roading is not allowed in this simulation. So if y is greater than, let's see, where do I start? Was it 40? When I'm adding things into traffic, it is at, oh, yes, that no longer needs to be there. It starts at 40, okay. So as long as y is greater than 40, not in leftmost lane, v dot get y, and if by moving there I'm not going to have a collision, something like this, except that I need to do v dot get x. I'm not going to add speed when I'm doing my switching lanes. Get y minus, oh, I'm in road. I don't need to say road. Lane height. Then what I'm just going to do is v dot get y minus lane height is what I'm going to set v's position to be. So basically switch lanes. Now, if I can't go that way, then I need to worry about going the other direction. And actually, I think I'm going to combine these two. So if I'm not in the leftmost lane and there's no collision, and the reason why I'm going to do that is that if either of those is bad news, then I need to worry about the other direction of the lane. So if it's less than 40 plus 3 times the lane height, and there's no collision when I add to this particular thing, then I'm going to add to it. All right, so, oh yes, collisions. I screwed those up. Okay, switches lanes, good. Now eventually we might get into a traffic jam, so, you know, watch out for that. All right, we have most of the functionality we need. The only thing we have left is throughput.